Okay, if you are in 7 Excel, we're working from the Advanced 2 textbook. If you're in Math 8, we're working from the Course 3 textbook. We are doing lesson 4.1, example 1. So we're jumping into linear equations. A linear equation is an equation whose graph is a line. The points on the line are solutions of the equation. So we're going to be given an equation with an x and a y, and we're going to figure out if x is one thing, what is y? That's going to create an ordered pair. We're going to graph those ordered pairs, and the graph should make a straight line. That's where the term linear equation comes from. Linear is a line, which is a solution for the equation. Okay? So our first one, we have y equals negative 2x plus 1. So here's my equation. Y equals negative 2x plus 1. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to make a table. So for this table, I get to decide what x is. I'm going to substitute x into the equation. When I solve that equation, it's going to give me a y. Then I can combine the x and the y for an ordered pair. So for the x's, I get to pick what numbers we use for x. I get to decide that. Students always ask, well, how did you know how to use that number? I get to pick what number I use. So I am going to pick the easiest numbers to work with. The easiest numbers to work with. I just need to make sure I'm going to solve this equation 3 times. And I need to make sure I have a positive x, a 0, and a negative x. So I'm going to solve this equation 3 times. And I'm going to make sure I have a positive x, a 0, and a negative x. But I get to pick what numbers. So I'm going to pick the easiest numbers to work with. So the first one I'm going to pick is positive 1. So now I'm going to substitute positive 1 for x. Y equals negative 2 times x plus 1. And I'm going to solve this. Y equals a negative and a positive is negative. 2 times 1 is 2, and everything else comes down. Y equals, you have to know your integers here. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So when x is positive 1, y is negative 1. And here's my ordered pair. Positive 1, negative 1. So I've solved this equation 1 time. I need to do it again. Only this time, I'm going to use a 0. Here's my positive. Now I need my 0. And I'm going to substitute 0 for x. Y equals negative 2 times x plus 1. And I'm going to solve this. Negative 2 times 0. Anything times 0 is 0. Everything else comes down. So y equals 1. So when x is 0, y is 1. And here's my ordered pair. 0, 1. So I've solved this equation now twice. I've used a positive x, a 0. Now I need to solve it again using a negative x. And I'm going to use the easiest numbers possible. So I'm going to use -1. And I'm going to substitute y equals -2 times x plus 1. So y equals a negative and a negative is positive. 2 times 1 is 2. And everything else comes down. So y equals 3. So when x is -1, y is 3. And here is my third ordered pair. So they gave us the equation, and we had to solve it 3 times. 1, 2, 3. We got to pick the numbers we wanted for x, but I needed to make sure that I used a positive, a 0, and a negative. Then when I substituted x into the equation and I solved it, it spit out a y. So here's my x, here's my y, and it creates an ordered pair. So I now have 3 ordered pairs that I can plot. So we have 1, -1, 0, 1, and -1, 3. And I need to graph these. So this is my x-axis. This is my y-axis. And in an ordered pair, the x comes first and then the y. So the x is my left and right. My x is +1. So here's +1. My y is the up and down. This is telling me I'm going down 1. So this is 1, -1. My x is 0, so my left and right is 0. My y is the up and down, so I'm going up 1. My x is left and right, so I'm going to -1. And my y is up and down. I'm going up 3. Then I'm going to use a straight edge and connect those points. Holy smokes, would you look at that? When I connect those 3 points and I create a graph, it forms a line. So this is the line for this equation. A linear equation. Every point on this line is a solution for that equation. So this is kind of a lot of work for one problem. They gave us one equation. We had to solve it 3 times, and make sure that our x's were a positive, a 0, and a negative. Then we had to graph it. It's a lot of work. Okay, let's do another example. Okay, y equals negative 1/2 x plus 2. Oh, the dreaded fraction. Don't let that fraction freak you out. Because remember, we get to pick what numbers we work with. So can we pick numbers that are going to make that fraction disappear? Yep. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my table. I get to pick my x's. We're going to substitute that x into this equation. We will solve it, and it's going to spit out a y. Then we can use this x and y to create an ordered pair. So I get to pick my x's. We're going to solve this equation 3 times. And I get to pick my x's. I need a positive, a 0, and a negative. So I'm going to pick the easiest numbers to work with. Now, I notice that I have a fraction here, and we're multiplying that by x. So half of 1 is half. I don't want to deal with fractions. So if my denominator is 2, can I choose 2 to be my x? What is half of 2? 1. It gives me a whole number, right? So when I'm picking my x's, because I'm multiplying by x, I'm going to choose an x that's divisible by the denominator, because it'll give me a whole number. So let's see how that works. I'm going to go with positive 2, because I need a positive. And I'm going to substitute y equals negative 1/2 times x plus 2. Y equals a negative times a positive is negative. And what this is asking me is, what is 1/2 of 2? What is 1/2 of 2? 1. Everything else comes down. By using the same number as our denominator or a multiple of the denominator, we effectively get rid of that fraction. And we're now dealing with whole numbers. It makes life easier. So y equals negative 1 plus 2 is positive 1. So my y is positive 1. Here's my ordered pair. 2, 1. So we've solved this equation once. I've used a positive. Now I'm going to use a 0. X is 0. Y equals negative 1/2 times x plus 2. Y equals anything times 0 is 0. And 0 is neither positive nor negative. So anything times 0 is 0. Everything else comes down. Y equals 2. So when x is 0, y is 2. Here's my ordered pair. Okay. I've solved this equation twice. I need to solve it one more time. I have a positive x, a 0x. Now I need a negative x. And here again, I have a fraction with a denominator of 2. So I'm going to multiply it by something that's divisible by 2, right? Okay, so here's my positive, my 0, my negative. I'm going to substitute y equals negative 1/2 times x plus 2. Okay, so y equals a negative and times a negative is positive. And this is asking me, what is 1/2 of 2? 1/2 of 2 is 1. Everything else comes down. So y equals 3. So when x is negative 2, y is 3. Here is my third ordered pair. So I have solved this equation 3 times. 1, 2, 3. I've got 3 ordered pairs. I've got 2, 1, 0, 2, and negative 2, 3. So let's graph these guys. This is my x-axis, and this is my y-axis. And the ordered pairs are always x, y. So my x is positive 2, right here. And I'm going up 1. My x is 0, and I'm going up 2. My x is negative 2, and I'm going up 3. I'm going to use a straight edge to connect those points, and they are points, not dots. So this is the graph or the line that is the solution for this equation. So every single point on this line is a solution for this equation. So even if I chose a positive 4 or a positive 6, that point will fall on this line. So this is where the term linear equation comes from. This equation, when it's solved and graphed, forms a line. And to solve linear equations, we need to take the equation, and we're going to solve that equation 3 times using a positive, a 0, and a negative. We have to solve that equation 3 times. That will give us 3 points. And then we can graph those points and form our line.